I like the booster seat. All right, here we go. Starting it. And you ready?
Set.
Go. All right. Hey guys, welcome back to Freedom Friday.
With the Timmy Tom Show.
With the Timmy Tom Show. Great episode in store for you today. All about abortion, Texas, being pro-life, and what about abortion in the case of rape?
Sounds like an interesting project. Let's
Indeed.
talk about it.
So, here we go. Hey guys, welcome back to the Timmy Tom Show. Today's episode is all about abortion, right? It's in the news. Some huge news came out of Texas, which we'll get into real quick. But we're going to be talking about abortion, talking about pro-life, some arguments, but also in this episode, mainly, what about in the case of rape?
That's a good one.
Now, all this is happening because Texas, God bless them, just passed a new heartbeat law. You know what it says?
What does it say?
It says the heartbeat law has gone into effect. Every child with a detectable heartbeat is legally protected from being killed by abortion.
Every child with a detectable heartbeat is legally prevented from being killed by abortion.
Guess when the heartbeat's detected?
Somewhere around 3-4 years old.
3 to 6 weeks.
3 to 6 weeks.
From conception.
A woman gets pregnant.
Right.
It takes a couple of weeks to even find out you're pregnant.
Right.
And get that confirmed. And then within 3 to 4 weeks after that, if you listen, you can hear the mother's heartbeat and somebody else's heartbeat.
Exactly.
Inside the mother.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking to myself, when somebody has an accident or something, you come up on people that are in an accident or lying on the ground or something, what's the first thing you do? You check to see if their heart's beating. Yeah. If the heart's beating, it tells you they're alive. They may be in great distress and need a lot of medical attention, but they're alive if the heart is beating. When you take that mother and at 6 weeks you have another heartbeat, it tells you somebody is alive.
Exactly.
Inside the mother, but they're alive.
Now, here's why this is so cool also, because not only did the Texas legislature pass this into law, but also in a 5-4 ruling, the Supreme Court of the United States has allowed Texas heartbeat law to remain in effect, which bans abortions after 6 weeks. Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, 3 of the Trump justices, all voted not to block the law. Right? John Roberts and the other 3 liberal justices voted to block the law.
Yeah. Hallelujah, Lord. Thank you.
Guys, this is so important with everything that's happening with Afghanistan and COVID and Biden and everything like that. It shows that God is still moving and that miracles happen no matter what. And this shows also that God's not done.
Amen. And I was thinking to myself today, if I went to God and said, God, how do you feel about abortion? What do I honestly think God would say? Would he say, yeah, abortion's good. I want women to be happy, and if they'd be happy, if they kill the baby, let's kill the baby. I can't imagine the God I know saying that. I've looked through his word. I can't find anything in his word that would even make me think that he would ever say that.
Right.
In fact, he says the opposite. He says, I knew each one of you in the womb. I formed you in the womb.
Yeah.
I see who you are in the womb. You are fearfully and wonderfully made by God.
What does it mean when he says you're fearfully and wonderfully made?
Well, yeah, fearfully. Fear doesn't mean that you're afraid. It doesn't mean you're made to be afraid. But you are so intricately made that it's inconceivable that it's a mistake or that you have anything to fear that it's not right. Because all the things that God has put into us are so complex, they're beyond accident. And that also is why they're wonderfully made. The functions of the human body are so wonderfully done. Think about the eye and how it sees and all the processes and all the things that have to be working together at one time to make you see and understand.
Sound waves that your ears are picking up right now that go back to your brain, and your brain processes all that information, and the words that have meaning happen just like that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. That's that's fearfully
and wonderfully
made.
And it's made with design. And so it's almost like we're God's masterpiece, because Genesis also says that we're created in his image. Male and female, God created them, and he created them in the image of God. And so when it comes to abortion, this is a huge point, because it's really about how valuable are you as a person? How valuable are the unborn? Are you just a clump of cells, or are you a clump of cells with a soul created by God? Because in reality, we're all just a clump of cells.
Well,
right?
in one sense we are, because we're made up of cells.
But we have that's that soul.
That's not who we are.
Exactly.
That happens to be what we're made of.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned something earlier that was really interesting. The difference between a baby that's born and a baby that's in the womb and conceived is already a human being. We're able to murder. That's the word I use because that's really what it is.
Yeah. Babies
in the womb. We wouldn't think of murdering babies after they're born.
No, definitely not.
Nobody goes to the hospital and says, "Oh, that kid's ugly. Kill him." They don't. They don't do that.
Even your pro-choicers don't do that, except maybe the ones who voted for the infanticide bill.
Well, maybe.
But, yeah, like Kamala Harris.
I would hope that none of them would. I would hope that every single one of them would say, every individual is valuable.
Right.
Now, some of us don't act like we're valuable, and some of us make a lot of mistakes and do a lot of horrendous things once we're grown. But when we're babies and when we're first born, nobody can look at us and say, that's going to happen with this or that's going to happen over here.
Exactly.
They don't know that.
No. And yeah, that's a really good point, because, what defines a person? Does, the baby who's about to be born suddenly become a person as soon as they get out of the womb? Like, what's the difference between a person like you and I are and you watching compared to someone in the womb? What's the difference?
Mm-hmm. The only difference is the environment. That's the only difference. The being is the same whether they're in the womb or out of the womb. It's sort of like I'm the same person if I'm confined to my bedroom,
right,
and that's the only place I go. I'm still the same person. Or if I can go out of the house and travel all over the world, I'm still the same person.
Right.
So the environment that you are in at a particular time does not define who you are.
Right. And that's even true if you're unborn. So even if you're not in the womb, you're still just as much as a human being and deserving of the rights protected and given to you and protected by the Constitution of the United States as much as we are.
That's it.
You have as much dignity as anybody else. They have as much dignity as anybody else.
In our country, our Constitution says that living people have rights. Now, when the baby's heartbeat...
Inalienable rights. Given it to us by God.
Yes. So if you can detect the baby's heartbeat at 6 weeks, it's a living person.
Right.
But you said we were going to talk about the case of rape.
Yeah, because, a lot of, I have some friends who say, well, I'm against abortion except in the case of rape, right? Because the traumatic thing happened to the woman, so she should be able to decide what she does with that baby because, it doesn't want to ruin her life and all this stuff, and it might be horrible for her. And the baby may look like the father one day and remind her of all that trauma.
Well, let's see if we can separate some of these things and think about them individually. First of all, rape is horrendous.
Yes.
And rapists ought to be punished to the full extent of the law.
I think castration would be a good thing.
And women who are raped should get all the support that we can possibly give them. And they need to recognize that it indeed is not their fault.
Yes.
And we need to find any way we can to help take away any sense of guilt that they might have about being raped. Once that is said, however, the event has already occurred. Killing the baby does not erase the event.
And it doesn't heal the trauma.
It doesn't. The rape occurred, and all the psychological things that happen with that are still occurring. Killing the baby does not remove that from a woman.
Right.
And I would venture to say that any woman, it's hard to tell because once you've killed your baby, you can't exactly say, well, it would have been this way if my baby had lived. But I believe that most people would say, you're right. I had the trauma whether I had the baby or didn't have the baby. And once you have the baby, you still have the same options that everybody who has a baby has. You can keep the baby, you can raise the baby, you can put the baby up for adoption.
Yeah. There's a lot of other options. And the idea here is, here's the argument. You don't get to kill Billy for what his daddy did, right? And it's, you wouldn't accept the killing of a person outside of the womb, a baby outside the womb, would you?
Right.
Then why do you get to kill somebody inside of the womb if they're the same human being and deserving of the same rights, and they have the same rights? There's no difference in that.
Well, I think that's a really valuable argument. The rapist should be taken care of.
Yeah.
But the child is innocent. The child didn't perform the rape.
Mm-hmm.
The child is being born. And
the science says that
you can't kill the child for what the rapist has done.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, and it's
Killing the rapist makes sense, but killing the child doesn't make sense.
And rape is wrong, and murder is wrong, right? For
Right.
the same reasons rape is wrong.
Right. Anytime you perpetrate something upon an innocent person,
Yep.
they have not done anything to bring that result upon them.
Yeah.
They're going through their life, and that something happens.
Rape hurts the woman, and murder of abortion hurts the baby, and they're both innocent.
And I believe that that women who have abortions are hurt also.
I do too.
There's lots and lots of studies of women who have had abortions who have terrible, terrible, terrible time dealing with that for the rest of their lives. And they need to know that God can forgive and restore women who've had abortions as well.
Well,
but that's not a reason to excuse the abortion.
Well, let's go like what Seth Gruber says.
Uh-huh.
So we'll tag his video in the description box below. He has a great argument. This is one of the things he says. Well, we don't want the woman to have a lot of trauma because the baby may look like the rapist's father, right? Well, it's great. Let's just play this out then. Why don't we allow each person conceived in rape to be born, right? Mm-hmm. And then we wait a couple of years. That way we can actually see, they're going to start looking like the father or the mother. If they're looking like the mother, great, we can keep them. But if they're looking like the father, just chop off the head right then and there, right? Because we're compassionate. No, nobody in their right mind would say that, right? But there's no difference between the baby who's 2 years old and the baby in the womb. In God's mind and in science, once you're conceived, you are a distinct and whole human from the moment of conception. You have everything you need. You have 23 chromosomes from the father, 23 chromosomes from the mother, and those make up a human being. And in those cells, you have everything you need for the program, for the DNA of the brain, the liver, the kidney, skeletal system, neurosystem, immune system,
and it goes on.
Circulatory system.
Yeah.
You have everything you need. And unless acted on by an outside force, that baby will go into completion.
Yeah. And there are, I haven't done any individual studies on it, but I'd like to know people who have been, children who have been conceived in rape, who have lived, who have made wonderful contributions to this world.
Well, we might have an example of that. I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
We'll also tag this in the description box. There is a lady named Barnett. She's a TV radio show host, and she's also a veteran. But Live Action, which is a pro-life organization, interviewed her, and she found out that she was conceived in rape. Her mom was 11 years old when she was raped, and then she gave birth to her when she was 12. 12 years old. Talking about the prime example of what people have said. But when she was 12, her mom's mom said, all right, you're pregnant, we're going to help you. And the mom said, I'm so glad abortion wasn't a choice.
Right.
It was, I'm going to have this baby, and yeah, it's terrible, but we're going to figure this out. And what's cool about Kathy, now she's married.
And she has her own family. Yeah.
And the mom was saying, why would I want to trade all that? Why would I want to trade my son-in-law, my grandchildren, my relationship with my daughter? Why would I want to trade all of that for trying to get rid of what this man did to me?
Yeah.
But, and Kathy has a great attitude also. Because even though she was conceived in rape, she says, but God chose me to be here. And it's the same thing for you and I.
And the rape didn't limit the choices that she made in her life.
No, it didn't.
And the wonderful things that she's done with her life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And regardless of how that child is conceived, they deserve a chance. And aborting the baby will not ease the trauma that the mother suffers.
Right. And the thing for me, the real key for me is the baby is innocent.
Right.
The baby didn't make the rape.
No.
The baby had nothing to do with the rape. If anything, the baby is the victim in this.
Yeah.
And to punish an innocent victim by killing them in the womb is just really hard for my spirit to deal with.
Yeah. You don't get to have a wrong make up a wrong. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There used to be an expression, 2 wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah.
So if there's one wrong, you don't do another wrong and expect it to be a right.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work that way.
But what's so encouraging, though, is one, abortion should be banned, right? It's not good for the babies. It's not good for the mothers. And easy access to abortion incentivizes people not to take responsibility. And it actually perpetuates sex trafficking, the porn industry, and a whole bunch of other things, right?
It does. And just as a side note, there are so many ways to prevent pregnancy today.
Yeah.
That if a woman doesn't want to be pregnant, and the man should be
Yeah.
part of that decision and say, I don't want you to be pregnant either,
Yeah.
there are all kinds of ways to prevent pregnancy from occurring. So
And-
the idea that I
Yeah.
have to get an abortion because suddenly I was walking down the street and pregnancy jumped on me and I got it.
The birth fairy just said you're
right.
pregnant. Yeah.
So there really is no reason.
But you know what's funny?
Yes.
My parents were using birth control, 2 forms of it, and they still had me. And so even if you're using birth control, we believe that marriage and sex should happen in marriage between a man and a woman when they're married, right? That's the place where God blesses it. Any other place, it's going to destroy. But if you're going to be doing the act, there's always that chance, even with birth control, that this could happen. And that you have to take the responsibility for that.
Yeah.
So if you really just don't want to deal with it, wait till you're married.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you for going down this way with us, and we ask you to sincerely give prayerful consideration to the things that you've heard. You may already understand these things and may agree with them,
Yeah.
or there may have been some things that you hadn't thought about in some way, but we hope that this will be an encouragement to you to look at the situation, ask God what He wants you to think about this.
Yeah.
And if you're like me, I have to be careful that I don't say, God, this is my view, I want you to bless it. I really need to say, God, help me find your view
Yeah.
and conform myself to your view.
Exactly.
And we hope that this gives you some insight and some information and some things to think about and pray about.
Yes. But thanks for listening, guys. That's going to be all for today. And we will see you next week on our next Freedom Friday.
Oh, I look forward to that.
Me too.
Hallelujah.
Me too. See you later.
Bye for now.
Huge news in Texas, Grandpa.
What's happening in Texas?
Check it out.
Yeah.
Texas.
I know that they've been working on a law regarding abortion.
Wait. Oh, let me do that again. Okay.
Okay. So
The babies are innocent.
they
And
are
this
the
is-
most innocent.
And this is where I need to take a break and shut the front door.
Okay.
The sprinklers keep on. Cool. That was just under 20 minutes.
Perfect.
Yep. And we didn't have to stop it, so it won't be a whole bunch of edits.
Just the one where we went to the front door and
And one at the beginning too.
Grandma, you can turn it back up again.